Got a 2011 Toyota Sienna, and you can see our CV boot is torn here on the outer boot on the passenger side. Now the easiest fix is just to replace the entire CV shaft. So let's jump on in here and get this done. Hey, what's up YouTube? Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. I'm going to show you how to change your CV axle or your CV shaft on your passenger side of a 2011 Toyota Sienna. Now this side is the longer of the two, and this one does have the little carrier bearing that can be a pain sometimes. Now the first thing I like to do even before starting the job is to take some PB Blaster or some penetrating oil and spray down this inner part of the axle nut, including the little carrier bearing. Now, if you live in a really rusty area, you're probably going to want to do that ahead of time, maybe even a couple days ahead of time. I only sprayed this a couple hours ago and have just let that sit and soak in. I think we're going to be okay. It also looks like this axle has been changed once before already because the axle nut is not the same as the factory. Now, if you're reusing the axle and you just want to take this apart and replace the boot, I highly recommend you unstake this flange, because if you don't, it can really mess up the threads here. Just using this little mini pry bar from Lyle. If your axle has not been changed before, you're going to notice that you'll need a 12.30 millimeter, just like this one here. In our case, it's been changed once before, and the new one is a 32. Now, the new axle that I bought from O'Reilly comes with a new axle nut. You're not supposed to reuse this. You should always replace this. Let's see if this is stuck. Oh, it's not. Take a look at that. We got lucky. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this job. Now, one of the ways that I've seen people do this is they take out these large bolts that connect the hub to the strut. You're also going to want to loosen and remove this 12 millimeter bolt that mounts the brake hose and the ABS line. Also, this line up here with a 10 millimeter, you're going to want to take out that little bracket that supports that ABS line. Now, I've seen people take the brakes off as well, and you don't really have to do that, but I get it. It's kind of heavy and it's kind of awkward. And so taking this off, including the rotor, gives you a little bit more room or space to work. Now, the other way that I've seen, and the way that I'm going to try it, is just by disconnecting the ball joint from below. Just loosen this bolt and these two nuts to separate the ball joint from the lower control arm, and that should allow us to push this outward enough to pop this axle out. So that's a 17 millimeter on the bolt and 18 millimeter on these nuts on the outside. At least that's what's on here. I don't know if these have been replaced before. All right, now I'm just going to pry down on the lower control arm and pull this out. There we go. And there it is. Axle is free on this side. Now let's go on the inside. All right, now we need to remove this little bolt here from the carrier bearing. It's a little impingement bolt. It has a little piece of rubber on the top, and that prevents the inside of that from spinning. It's a 14 millimeter socket. All right, then we can take off this clip that holds the axle in place. Squeeze that together and just trying to pull that out of its mount. There we go. Just basically pulling it forward. You can see now it's loose. All right, now let's see if we get lucky and if this will just slide right out. There we go. We got lucky. Ours just popped right out. Now, if it doesn't just pop right out like that, you can go from that side of the little bracket and beat on this with a drift or a sledge or something like that, and you should be able to jar it loose. Now, not sure if you can see this, but there's a little teeny rubber piece that basically this bolt pushes up, and that's what keeps the center part from spinning. Now, I think the PB Blaster really helped us, but I'm just going to wipe this out a little bit, make sure that that's clean. Just being careful to make sure I don't knock that rubber piece out. It's still in there. Sometimes it comes out with the bolt. This one stayed in. All right, so we just want to compare the old to the new, and they do look to be the same. We do need to pull this clip out from the old one and just pop it on the new one just like that. And this one's ready to go in. All right, we'll just carefully feed this one through. you got to be careful on the splines on the transmission. Just make sure that we get those lined up. Just be careful not to damage that seal. Just kind of guide that in. If you need to spin it a little bit to line it up, that's all right. And it's in. Now you'll notice we didn't even leak any transmission fluid. I do have the car lifted up a little bit more on the passenger side, but I had a drain pan here as well just in case, but we didn't leak any at all, and that seal looked good, so I think we're good to go. All right, now we just need to squeeze this clip and try to line it up into the groove. This is kind of tricky sometimes. I almost got it. All right, let's try that again. Oh, not quite. All right, I decided to crawl down underneath here and just using some little channel locks, and I think we got it. There it is. I just wanted to bring you down here. So here's the clip. It's kind of tricky sometimes to get that to go into this groove, but the channel locks seem to do the trick. Looks good. Now we can put this bolt back in. I know some people, they don't even bother taking this bolt out and they could still get the axle out, but I just wanted to take it out so it wasn't putting any pressure on the outside of that bearing. And we'll just get that snug. And then we can torque this bolt to 24 foot-pounds. All right, and then I'm just gonna pull this out just a little bit and line that up and push it through. Now we can go down and line up the two nuts and the bolt for the ball joint. All right, now we just need to pry this down while we push this on. And sometimes that's a little tricky. Let me see if I can get that pry bar real quick. Okay, I'm just gonna use a pry bar, just put it in through the hole in the lower control arm. I'm gonna push that down with my foot while I line up the axle. And just need to line up these lower studs here. There we go. And just gonna get these started by hand. Now I'm just gonna snug these up with the impact. Now the torque spec that I found online for this bolt and these two nuts is 68 foot-pounds. All right, and then we can thread the new axle nut on. Now I'm just gonna get this snug with the impact. All right, now we need to torque this axle nut to 217 foot-pounds. And in order to keep this from spinning, there's a couple things you can do. You can have somebody get in the vehicle and step on the brakes, and that will probably keep this from spinning. Or you can just put a little pry bar here in the end of the rotor, and that will catch here on the caliper bracket. You can also just use a nice big heavy-duty pry bar and just prop it right here in between the lug studs, and that should also work. I'm just gonna leave both of these in there while we tighten this to 217 foot-pounds. All right, now we need to spin this around so that we can stake that flange into the little groove. That's easy enough. We're just gonna spin this around with this pry bar right there. Now I'm just gonna use this little punch here and stake this flange down. All right, that should do it. And that's it, we are done. You know, I know that was a pretty quick and easy job for us. In our case, it came right out, we were pretty lucky. The only advice I can give you is to soak that ahead of time with some penetrating oil. And if you live in the Rust Belt, an air hammer is your friend. Sometimes the splines get stuck in here as well, and I know that that can be a struggle. Ours came right out. Now, it's definitely up to you if you want to do it the way that I did it, by separating the ball joint with the two nuts and the bolt, or separate the strut up above and, of course, disconnect a couple of those brake line mounts. You definitely don't need to take off the brake caliper, but a lot of people do that just because it is kind of heavy and awkward, and I totally get that. I mean, it's your car. Do it however you prefer or whatever you think is easiest. For me, I think this did end up being a little bit easier and probably was the quicker way to do do it. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is, you see I do have a jack stand here. Of course, I still have the jack underneath as well, but I didn't put a jack stand on the other side so that I could lower that side down a little bit more. The tire is actually barely off the ground, so I was still able to spin that if I needed to, but I did that so that the vehicle would be leaning towards the driver's side and we would be less likely to lose a lot of fluid when we took that out. We didn't even lose a drop, so I'm really happy about that. We don't even need to worry about topping that off, but I had the drain pan down here and it's completely dry. We did not lose any transmission fluid at all. Now, as a courtesy, I am going to check their transmission fluid level, just make sure that it is at the appropriate level. You know, usually you do drip a little bit. I was just kind of being overly cautious by tipping the vehicle a little bit to the driver's side to try to help eliminate losing some, and I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't lose any, but that does of course raise the question, is the transmission fluid at the appropriate level? I'll double check that before we let them go, and of course we'll get that wheel back on and torqued as well. But I hope you guys like this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't mind. That does help me out, and of course I'll get a link in the description to some of the parts and tools used in the video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.